Welcome back. Walter Football, the OddsShopper channel, the two major sites combining forces here. That's Walt, I'm Eitan, so we appreciate you rolling with us once again as we inch closer to the final game of the entire NFL season. But we have a couple in the divisional round to get to. Dan is producing you out there. We ask what thumbs up, subscribe. We'll tell you all about WalterFootball.com coming up, including a way in which you can turn 5 into 200 if you're following along. But my friend, it was a wild week, and I say that not in the sense of like wild card week. It was just crazy. Exactly right. Shaking your head that way. We can look back briefly, but the beauty of it is that we have more games to talk about this weekend.
Yeah, it was a fun week despite the record. The Chargers kind of ruined it on Saturday night. They got out to a 27-0 lead, and I think that was the least surprising comeback that we've ever seen from almost 4 touchdowns. Like when I was watching it, I was like, Jaguars could score 4 touchdowns. This is no big deal. Like I thought that live. I can't believe I didn't bet the Jaguars money line. Like in hindsight, I guess as Cam Newton once said, hindsight's 50-50. I guess it's a lesson going forward that if you have a team that always blows leads and they have a big lead, just bet the money line against them.
Absolutely. Not all angles hit you over the head like that, by all means. Some you have to mine for certain. But yes, whenever we have the Chargers in place, so long as Staley is the coach, that is always in action there, by all means. All right, so we shake off it wasn't the best week, wasn't the worst week by any means. And now we look at the divisional round here, a couple of familiar foes matchups. If it's coaching, as we have on Saturday to look at between Kansas City and Jacksonville, and then we'll get to our Eagles. But let's start with the appetizer on Saturday, if you will.
Yeah, speaking of familiar, I think this is one of the first picks I made on this channel. The Jaguars, they were plus 9.5 against the Chiefs back in week 10.
Yep.
And I took the Jaguars. They didn't cover. They missed by half a point, but they missed a chip shot field goal to maybe cover the spread. It was kind of frustrating. And I like them again. I think this line's too high. I made this line Chiefs minus 6.5, even factoring in the bye. The reason I made it so low, quote unquote, is because the Chiefs just haven't been able to put together a full game all year. A couple times they did it against the 49ers back when San Francisco had a ton of injuries, and also Tampa Bay, and we know how bad Tampa Bay is. Outside of those two games, they haven't put together a full game. They always let up in either the first half or the second half, usually the second half. And this goes back to last year. Like even in the playoffs against the Bengals, they had a big lead in the AFC Championship and they blew it, and the Cincinnati won in overtime. So this is something that's been happening for more than a year now, including big games. And I think it could happen again. The Chiefs have a good matchup against Jacksonville's defense, but I don't see them scoring in the second half. I think they could let up, and we've seen Trevor Lawrence come back. We just discussed it. It's not the only time he did it. He did it against Dallas, so he did it against a good defense, and it's not like the Chiefs have a good defense. So I think at the very least, Trevor Lawrence is going to be in position for a great backdoor cover. He has tons of weapons to throw to. The Chiefs can't stop them. The Chiefs are bad against tight ends. I feel like Evan Ingram is going to go off. They're bad against slot receivers, so Christian Kirk has a great matchup. So it seems like the Jaguars have all the positive matchups when they have the ball. And as long as they don't have so many fluky turnovers like they did on Saturday night, I think they should be able to cover the spread. Just look at how the Chiefs have done when favored by a big margin this year. They won by 3, 10, 16, 6, 14, and 3. Not convincing. So they could cover the spread by a little bit, but I think that there's a good chance the Jaguars cover the 8.5.
No, I love it. I mean, you detailed all the key elements there. There's nothing for me to add from a statistical or even analytical advantage. I would just echo the overall sentiment, which is it's almost a surprise at this point, especially as you get deeper into the season now in the playoffs, if the Chiefs blow somebody out. I mean, I think we're at that point, right? Well, where it's almost like a surprise no matter who they play.
Yeah, we saw it week 18. They kind of blew out the Raiders, but they only scored 7 points in the second half, and the Raiders are not a good team by any means. They're starting Jarrett Stidham. Right. So the Jaguars are a lot better. They've been very hot recently. I know they kind of floundered against Tennessee in the final week of the regular season. They needed a defensive score to get there, but Tennessee is a great defense. Like it's by no means near as good as the Chiefs defense nowhere near as good as Tennessee's defense. So yeah, I feel like Jacksonville should be able to score at will in the second half. And I think there's a good chance this is a backdoor cover.
Absolutely. 8.5. So you're over a bunch of key numbers there as well. So we move to the second game on Saturday in Philadelphia, another familiar squad, but let's remind the world, as we will a couple of times here, about what you guys are doing at walterfootball.com, because we've mentioned this every time we talk about the mock drafts and how they continue to update and how ahead you are of the NFL draft when it comes from a betting standpoint. Now, you're doing a bunch of other great things on site as well, but as we get closer to the end of the season, that also means getting closer to the draft, Walter.
Yeah, it's exciting times. It means it's draft season. Everyone loves the draft, and we're about 3 months away where you have updates every week for mock drafts. Not just me, but Charlie Campbell, our senior NFL draft analyst, who talks to everyone. And through his sources, we were able to get every single draft prop correct, except for extreme long shots last year. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, as soon as the information comes rolling in, we'll have it on the site. The Senior Bowl is coming up. That's like our first opportunity to talk to sources. So Charlie's going to have a ton of content on the site regarding the draft. So yeah, look for that at walterfootball.com.
Awesome. And we'll remind everybody again, because there's some other things happening. It's not just the draft, but we just want to focus on what you guys have been killing as well. So let's look at the Eagles Giants. 7.5 point. This thing opens. Another familiar foe, division team. Third time everybody's building this up, but I don't know how much stock, if any, you're going to put into that regular season finale on both sides. But this is a different Giants team that we saw even in the first matchup as far as healthier on defense. So I'm curious to see how you look at this with the objective non-Eagles fan hat on, of course.
Yeah, I mean, everyone says that this is the third time they're meeting. It's really the second time because the starters didn't play. The Eagles had a vanilla game plan in the final week of the regular season, so you can't really look at that. So I really like the Eagles here. I think as long as Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson are healthy, those are the two caveats. Hurts is not on the injury report, which is surprising. And then Lane Johnson, he had a limited practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll see. He says he's going to play. Doesn't mean he's going to play. Like, players are always confident in themselves and being able to play, but it sounds like he will because he's been limited in practice. So as long as those two guys are on the field, I love the Eagles. I think this could be a blowout. I know the Giants have been healthier defensively with Adoree Jackson back, but I just don't think they have what it takes to match up with the Eagles. Especially when they have the ball. Their offensive line is better this year, but it's not great. And I think the Eagles should be able to dominate. They had the most sacks in the NFL this year. They really disrupted the Giants offense. If you look at the first game was 48-22. Yep. 7 points came off a blocked punt, and then the rest of their production came in garbage time. So I don't see what's changed for the Giants offense. I know that they look great against the Vikings twice. Like Isaiah Hodgins looked like Jerry Rice, but he's not going to look like Jerry Rice against Darius Slay and James Bradbury. I think this line's too low. I made this 10. This line was 7 in New York. So why is this only half a point higher in Philadelphia, especially with the Eagles having a bye? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think this is low. And kind of look at how the Giants have done against elite competition this year. They haven't played too many teams. Like, they played the Cowboys twice. They lost by 7 when Cooper Rush started. They lost by 8 on Thanksgiving, but they were down 15 for most of the second half. They had a backdoor cover, and then they lost by 26 to the Eagles. Like, those are the only 3 elite teams or two elite teams they played this year with Cowboys twice. It feels like the Giants' record is inflated. They've beaten a bunch of bad teams this year. Like, they got blown out in Seattle. Like, how does this seem? So I think the Eagles should be able to win this, provided that Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts play.
Big caveat there as far as Johnson, and I know exactly what you mean, but you reference as far as Jalen not even being on the injury report. This team, I feel like there's a little extra motivation. Hurts is most likely not going to win the MVP. We know Nick Sirianni's not going to win Coach of the Year. I mean, there's all this extra stuff there that doesn't necessarily get factored into a bet, but it does get factored into conversation because it's been talked about at length in this area here. So these guys are listening to it as well. Look, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I was curious to see where you were going with this because I think there are arguments for New York, but they fall short probably for a lot of teams in the NFL, Walter, as we get deeper into the playoffs, where you're just going to have to match firepower with the Eagles. And that's the biggest concern, I think, even at a 7.5 points. 10 points, feel comfortable then at 7.5, even over that key number.
Yeah. 10 is
Yep.
not like one of the elite key
No,
numbers.
7, I meant. Sorry.
Oh,
Where it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's,
definitely.
yep.
Like you're giving up all the key numbers betting on the Eagles, but still, like 10 is sort of a key number. Like 10 hits just as often as 4, 1, and 2, and 8. Like so, it's still a minor key number. So you're still getting that as well. And yeah, I'm hopefully that Jalen Hurts not winning MVP like fires him up, because
I think it will.
it fires me up too, because I had a 40-1 ticket on Hurts to win MVP,
Damn it.
and it looked great for most of the year. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to cash this, and apparently not. He still has a chance. You can argue that he should win because the Eagles are 14-1 with him, 0-2 without him. But it does look like Mahomes, unfortunately.
It is unfortunate. I know, man. All right, let's move to Sunday's action. We have 2 more games to get to. We're going to remind people how to turn 5 into 200 before we get out of here. So let's start with the early action on Sunday.
Yeah, this is it should have been a great game. I loved the Bengals in Week 17, and they look like they're off to a great start. Joe Burrow looks so locked in. He drove down the field for a touchdown, and the Bills got a field goal, and then he drove over midfield, and then we know what happened after that. This is a completely different matchup now. It's kind of crazy. It's only 3 weeks later, but it's so different now. It's because the offensive lines for these two teams. The Bengals were already down Lyle Collins. Then they lost Alex Kappa last week, and he might come back. We'll see. But they also lost Jonah Williams to a back injury. He's week to week, apparently, according to this coach. So unless he makes a miraculous comeback and Kappa returns, they're going to be down 3 offensive linemen. They only scored 8 points after Jonah Williams got hurt against Baltimore. So I really don't have that much hope for the Bengals scoring. Meanwhile, the Bills got back some offensive linemen. They were down their center, Mitch Morse, for that Week 17 game. Now he's playing. They're getting Ryan Bates, their guard, back. I don't think he was completely healthy for that game, but now he is. So, this is a completely different matchup now. And I feel like that people are underrating Buffalo, as crazy as it sounds. Like even if they're favored by 5.5, they almost lost to Miami, and people might be hesitant to bet them because of that. But they outgained the Dolphins by 200 yards. They averaged 2.6 more yards per play. Like they were clearly the better team. There's just so many fluky plays that happen, like so many drops, like weird interceptions, the fumble return for a touchdown. I think if they play that game 10 times, I think the Bills blow them out more often than not. It was just a weird circumstance, and I think that's creative value with Buffalo a little bit. One concern I have is that Joe Burrow is 31-11 against the spread when not favored by more than a touchdown. It's kind of insane how great he is against the spread. So, backdoor cover is definitely a possibility with Burrow. So this is my least favorite pick of the week. But I think that as long as those 3 offensive linemen are out, I think Buffalo should be able to dominate this matchup. And I think they probably win this game by like 7 or so.
Real quick, if it gets to 6, because we're no longer constrained by the contest here and the rules that prevent a teaser for that matter, if it gets to 6, is it worth reversing that and teasing the Bills down, or is the value gone because now you're teasing a number at 6 as opposed to when it opened up at 3.5?
So for teasers, my rule is you have to get 3, 6, and 7, no matter which direction you go. So if you're 7.5 down to 1.5, or 1.5 down up to 7.5, you have to get those 3 for it to mathematically work. Now, I think that you probably are going to win teasing down for 6 to pick them. But I don't think I'd consider a teaser unless it was 7. So you get the 7. But I think that if it gets to 7, I don't think it will. But like hypothetically, if it does, I think I would consider the Bengals because you get all those key numbers. And Joe, like I said, Joe Burrow has a good chance for backdoor cover. He has so many weapons, and he's such a great quarterback. So I think there's a good chance that happens.
All right, we have one more game to get to, Cowboys and the Niners. Before that, I mentioned this is a really simple, easy process. It's going to take 90 seconds out of your life out there to sign up. Maybe you're in a state that's new to sports betting. Maybe you've put off signing up on DK, or maybe there's somebody in the house that you've been trying to convince to sign up at DraftKings. Don't worry. You have to be in a state that's legal. You have to be 21 or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All we need from you is to click this link below. It's going to take you 90 seconds to sign up. You can link an account. The PayPal bank account doesn't matter. Then deposit just $5. That's all you need to do, and place a wager, right? So just place a wager. What was the first game that we did was the Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, Walt's on the points. Put $5 on the Jags money line. Crazier shit has happened. But here's the thing. The game doesn't need to kick off. The Jags don't need to win. None of that happens. All you need to do is place the wager, because as soon as you place the wager, $200 right back into your account. Again, this whole process is going to take shorter than me explaining it for you to sign up and turn 5 into 200. All right, final game, Niners, Cowboys. Seems as crazy as this sounds, and I'm not leaning towards a play or not, or trying to lead you either, right? Because you're already locked into where you are. But as crazy as this sounds, it seems like Dallas is the better team, but San Francisco is playing better football.
Yeah, I mean they haven't lost since that game against the Chiefs. They've been on fire. Brock Purdy has been amazing, but I think it's fair to question the caliber of opponent he's played. Now he's played some decent teams here and there, but the defenses he's played, just like look at the defenses. So Dolphins, Buccaneers, Seahawks, Commanders, Raiders, Cardinals, and Seahawks. Of those defenses, only one is in the top 10 of defensive EPA. That's the Commanders, and only two are in the top half. The Buccaneers were the other one. The Buccaneers are missing three starting members of their secondary in that game, so I think you can throw that out. The Commanders, that game was weird. Like there were a lot of defensive plays. Carson Wentz came in. There were a lot of turnovers by Washington. Now, Purdy had a good game there. He hit George Kittle for big gains, but the Commanders are missing their top safety, Cameron Curl. So they really couldn't stop tight ends. And I think when you look at any Niners game, you have to consider can the opposing defense defend the middle of the field? Because that's where the Niners attacked. With the running backs, you have Debo in the middle of the field and also George Kittle. The Cowboys are great against the middle of the field. They're number one against tight ends. They're number three against running backs. So they should be able to limit what the Niners do offensively. And then defensively, you have the Niners struggling at cornerback. We've seen like great receivers go off against them. DK Metcalf last week, Devontae Adams had an amazing game in Week 17. Like even though Jarrett Stidham was throwing to him, it's been a problem. In the Washington game, McLaurin was going off. Like it's been a problem for them defending these receivers. And I think they're going to have a big issue defending CD Lamb. So I love how the Cowboys match up against the Niners, and I love the value we're getting here. I made this line 49ers -1 or 1.5. I couldn't decide. These teams are right next to each other in my power rankings. And, home teams get 1.5 or 1 these days, depending on which sportsbook you ask. It's not 3 anymore. It's like 1.5. So 49ers -1.5 seems like the right line. And now this is either 3.5 or 4, depending on where you look. I think we're getting great value. We're getting the key number of 3. And speaking of 3, I think the 2 most likely results of this game in some order are 49ers by 3 and Cowboys by 3. So we're getting both results with this line. So I love Dallas. This is my top pick of the week. I just don't understand the spread. I think there's so much Purdy hype going on. Everyone loves him. And, to his credit, he's been amazing for the Mr. Irrelevant. But he hasn't played a great defense, and this is the first time he's going to be playing a great defense with a great offense attached to it. So I think that there's a good chance Dallas wins this. So I'll be betting the Dallas +4 and also the money line.
Wow, look at that. Dallas +4, money line on the boys. The Brock Purdy train is derailed. All right, let's work in reverse. You got the Cowboys +4, the money line. You have the Bengals right now at +5.5, correct?
Oh, no, the Bills -5.5.
Bills, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I like I said, if it goes to those key numbers, I would consider switching the Bengals.
That's my fault, right?
Yeah, it's my least favorite pick of the week. Eagles -7.5, as long as Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts are on the field, and then Jaguars +8.5.
All right, I know we talked about the draft. You can brag again about the draft, but you're doing a bunch of other cool stuff at walterfootball.com.
Yeah, we have updated picks throughout the week, multiple updates. So if there's an injury, if I have different thoughts on the game, or if the line moves, we have updates on the picks page. We have grades for every coach firing so far, and we're going to have some hiring soon. So we're going to have grades for those. We have the free agencies in 2 months. We're have grades for every single signing. We're going to have free agency rankings up soon, probably like in a week or so. Fantasy rankings for 2023 are going to be up soon. We have picks for the NBA and also the NHL. So you can get all that at walterfootball.com.
Love it. walterfootball.com. Again, pound it. Make sure you're there every day. Also here, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't on the way out with OddsShopper. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to you all out there. All right, man, go Birds. I don't know. And let's knock everything else out the park.
Yeah, let's go 4-0, and I'll see you next week.